episode of Just an Afterthought. I am your host, Bree Valentina, aka the agent that gets called out by Tony Stark for playing Galaga.
He didn't think we would notice, but we did.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't think you would notice. Couldn't help it.
I love that. And I'm your host, Jimmy Smalls, otherwise known as the one burdened with glorious purpose.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, I like that.
I'm gonna be a bit conniving today.
Ooh. Spicy.
Sneaky.
Spooky. Sneaky spooky. Today we're going to be talking about Avengers, Avengers from 2012. It is episode 7.
So, we're on 7, huh?
Yeah,
Wait.
we are on 7.
Or is this 6?
Yeah. No. Because Thor
bad.
was 6. Yeah, Thor was 6.
That's crazy.
So, it's,
time flies.
Time flies when you're having fun, right?
That's weird. Now I'm doing the number. I'm crunching the numbers in my head.
Yeah. Episode 7, Avengers.
Look
Which
at
is,
us.
I think, what's great is because we've, with the exception of Captain Marvel, have been led up to this point. So we've seen 6 films and have been already introduced to all the characters for this now epic kind of team up moment. So it's like, all right, yeah, we're finally here.
Here we are.
But before we get into it, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good.
Good.
I'm goal-oriented. I'm going to do all the things today, and I'm excited. I'm excited for this. I'm excited for... I have a couple more days, and then I'm going on vacation.
Ooh.
So, yeah.
That'll be exciting.
I'm excited.
Yeah. I wish I could go on vacation.
One day.
Yet.
Soon.
No, well, yeah. I have nowhere to go.
I feel that.
I could go visit my mom.
Yeah.
But I have to plan that out, I can't, it couldn't be anything like last minute. I'd have to plan it out. But I'd love to go on vacation. Hopefully soon. But that's good.
I know you get that vacation one day.
Yeah. I feel like I haven't taken a vacation since, oh my goodness, since I graduated college 2 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah. Because I went to New York. And I visited,
I remember that.
Yeah, I went for 2 weeks. I visited my mom for 1 week. And then, I think it was 2 weeks. Or maybe a little over 2 weeks.
It's like a week and a half.
Yeah. Because I went and visited my mom. And then I got on a train and went to New York. And, went... My grandmother, wanted to stay at the plaza. It was, a big thing. So we went there, and we stayed there for a few days. And I saw Phantom on Broadway with her, which was, a bucket list item because it's one of my favorite musicals. So
that's so exciting.
Yeah. So to see that with her, and it was a bucket list item to see it on Broadway with her because she introduced me to Phantom, when I was maybe 8 or 9. A
tiny Bree.
Yeah, tiny baby Bree. And so it's been our shared thing. So it was nice. I've always had wanted to go see it on Broadway with her. So the fact that I got to do that was amazing.
That sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was. It was the maybe 3rd or 4th time I'd seen the show.
Okay.
But for me, it never gets old. I love the Phantom of the Opera. It's probably one of my favorites. So yeah.
Everyone has that musical, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. For me, it's Jersey Boys and Phantom of the Opera. Are probably the top. They're always competing for first place. Just depends on the week.
How I'm feeling.
Yeah, and then I have others that circulate the top 5. But yeah,
everyone
has that special musical. Absolutely.
Yeah.
But you know what musical that I don't appreciate because it was an epic failure? Spiderman. Turn off the dark. Turn off
Spider-Man and all the other Spider-Mans.
Yeah, Spider-Man and the Spider-Mans.
I didn't even want to like... I didn't want it anywhere near my radar. I could not tell you what it was about. I did not look up anything for it because I just did not want to know.
So I found out about this in high school because my drama teacher told me about it. Mm-hmm. Shout out to her. And she was like, yeah, this is an awful musical. It was directed by the Julie Taymor, who directed Lion King, I believe, on Broadway. And it was an epic disaster. I believe the Green Goblin was in it.
Okay.
There was a lot of technical difficulties with it.
Yeah, I heard, with him, web slinging, there was a lot of problems.
Yeah, well, the actors, because, obviously we know Spider-Man is very, he swings and it's very acrobatic. There's a lot of, he swings. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can't remember the rest of that.
I don't even want to try to think of the song. I know I'll butcher it.
Yeah. But there was, issues with, getting that right, and, I guess ropes or cables were breaking and actors were falling from high places and injuring themselves. They had so many different actors go through the role of Spider-Man. It just was
they were just going through them like hotcakes.
Yeah. Just like in the movies, we've had so many different Spider-Men. Even on Broadway, we've had many different Spider-Men. But yeah, there was just
I feel like it takes a special person to play Spider-Man.
Yeah, and to want to keep doing the role when you know that literally every night could probably be your last because of technical difficulties.
That's crazy. See, that's commitment. I don't know if I...
Yeah.
I'm just I don't know if I could do that.
People were breaking their legs, and I think, they were, getting seriously injured doing the show, and then... I think it only did previews. I don't even think it fully opened on Broadway, or maybe it did and then closed immediately after because there was so many problems. It wasn't financially viable to keep the show running. But anyway, enough about Spider-Man Turn Off the Dark because we could probably have a whole episode dedicated to it. It is insane and it's crazy to talk about. But we're going to talk about the Avengers, what we've been leading up to this whole time. So some quick little things about the Avengers. So Marvel's The Avengers, is a 2012 American superhero film based on the Marvel Comics superhero team of the same name. Produced by Marvel Studios and distributed by Walt Disney Studios Motion Pictures. It is the sixth film in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Although, I will note, in terms of distribution, I swear I saw a Paramount logo.
Yeah, I did too. It was really quick, and I was like, oh, so maybe Paramount did have something to do with at least this last one. Yeah, maybe, but maybe it was mainly distributed by Walt Disney. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, so I thought that was interesting. So the film was written and directed by Joss Whedon and features an ensemble cast that includes Robert Downey Jr., Chris Evans, Mark Ruffalo, Chris Hemsworth, Scarlett Johansson, and Jeremy Renner as the Avengers, alongside Tom Hiddleston, Clark Gregg, Kobe Smulders, Stellan Skarsgård, and Samuel L. Jackson. And then the film, this is what the film's about. In the film, Nick Fury and the spy agency S.H.I.E.L.D. recruit Tony Stark, Steve Rogers, Bruce Banner, and Thor, as well as Hawkeye and Black Widow, but they don't say that in this, but I'm going to add them anyway, to form a team capable of stopping Thor's brother Loki from subjugating Earth. So that's what the movie's about. Ooh. So fun stuff. So if you don't know, now you know. Now you know. The brief Wikipedia synopsis of the movie. Facts. Do you want to go first? Or do you want me to? Okay, yeah, go first. I don't mind. So I have a couple facts. My first one, around the 2-hour mark, which is when they're towards the end, the battle at New York, when Iron Man flies through that big old worm called the Leviathan, and he shoots all those missiles and stuff and explodes. He crashes on the street in front of the shawarma place. And it's like so quick you almost don't notice it. It took me a couple of times to actually realize it. Like, oh, that's where he sees the... Because when I first saw the movie, I was like, why does he want shawarma so bad when he's talking about getting shawarma? Shawarma at the end after he launches the missile into space. Mm-hmm. I'm like, where does he get this whole shawarma thing? Like, I don't get it. And, like, going back and seeing it the last few times, like, one of the last times I saw it, I realized, like, there's this shawarma place in the corner. It's like, I think it's on, like, the right-hand side. But, yeah, so it's a whole thing. Like, when they were setting up the shot and everything like that. And then I feel like later on they just added it into the movie, like, this whole, like, yeah, like, anyone want shawarma? Like, let's get shawarma. And I'm just like, Robert Downey Jr. is just a treasure because he just takes the little things and makes them really great. And I feel like with most of the Avengers movies, but especially the team-up movies, like, it's the small things and it's, like, the small moments that really, like, hold places in people's hearts. So yeah, that's where the whole shawarma thing really started, was a couple scenes prior when he's crashing through a worm.
Nice.
My other fact, which I've always found interesting, and I really wanted it because in the originals, the original comics, the first Avengers lineup is Captain America isn't there. It's Iron Man. Yeah, it's Iron Man, Hulk, Thor, and then it's Ant-Man and Wasp. That's the original team up for the Avengers. And then Captain America comes later. He gets unfrozen. They find him. And then he, like, starts leading the team because he's Captain America. But they changed it for this. Joss Whedon actually wrote the first Avengers script with Wasp in it because he loved the character of Wasp. Joss Whedon has always fancied female characters and strong female leads, and I think that from what I've heard, he focused a lot of the movie on Wasp. Like, it was kind of like from her perspective, I think. And they were having trouble fitting her in, and you couldn't have the Wasp without Ant-Man, and they really didn't set it up to begin with, with Ant-Man and Wasp. So, and like he was writing this while they were still doing Thor and Iron Man 2 and the plans for that. So it just wasn't working. And then they added Natasha and Clint, Hawkeye and Black Widow, and it was just easier to go that route. And so he had to change it. But the original script was supposed to have Wasp, and, for, reasons but known to us. But I think it was just trying to fit their story in, which would have been hard, introducing these two big characters kind of so late in the game. It got scrapped. Oh. So, yeah. Would we have loved to see her sooner? Yes. But I kind of love where Wasp is now. Both Janet Van Dyne and her daughter Hope later on in the cinematic universe. I think it works better for this story that they were trying to tell.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like too this team up has become so iconic as well. Yeah. That it would have been interesting, to see it differently, but I think I like the way that it has panned out, and having everybody, the OG6 is it what they like to call them, right? Like, yeah. Yeah, so I don't know. I think it's cool. It would have been interesting though to see Wasp in there, from the very beginning. Yeah. But yeah. That's cool. Any other facts, or is that it?
Nope. That was just the two.
Okay. Oh, just the two. I thought you were gonna surprise me with like a secret one.
No secret facts this time.
Dang it. Okay. Well, my facts. Okay, so Robert Downey Jr. kept food hidden all over the lab set, and apparently nobody could find where it was, so they just let him continue doing it. In the movie, that's his actual food he's offering, and when he was eating, it wasn't scripted. He was just hungry, which is a big mood. Yeah, fully relate. That would probably be me. Be like hiding some snacks around. What snack would you hide around?
Oh, it'd probably either be like Tapatio Doritos, or honestly, it'd be like French fries, or like a full ass meal that I would just hide somewhere and just take bites of when I could, or like something like really accessible, like candy, like M&Ms, or I love Reese's Pieces.
But anyway, back to the facts. So according to writer and director Joss Whedon, that man is playing Galaga line was ad-libbed by Robert Downey Jr. And worked so well that Whedon decided to add in an image of Galaga on that quote unquote that man's console as the scene's punchline. So
I love that.
Yeah, right. So that was a totally ad-libbed line, and I thought it was hilarious, so I added that in. And then last one, just because I thought it was kind of interesting. Disney had the film's title changed in the UK to Marvel Avengers Assemble to avoid confusion with the iconic British espionage franchise The Avengers from 1961 and The Avengers from 1998. So
that kind of reminds me how they changed, well, not like the same for the same reasons, but how they changed Harry Potter out here from the Philosopher's Stone to the Sorcerer's Stone.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Why is that?
Yeah.
Why'd they change it?
Why? Oh, I don't know. I think like just sorcerer like sounded better like for American audiences who are reading
he's
the
like
books
a
at
wizard.
the time. Yeah. So like, because I mean, a philosopher can also be like a type of magician. Like usually a lot of philosophers that do magic are like alchemists, which technically a philosopher's stone is an alchemic like, you know, property, like it's a thing like that. But it just wouldn't. A lot of Americans, I don't think, realize that, so they changed it. I'm pretty sure that was the reason.
That's interesting.
The little knowledge of magic that I do know, I think it was for that reason.
Oh, well, that's I don't know. I haven't. Like I said, I barely have any knowledge of Harry Potter.
Yeah,
so I don't know.
That will change.
Yes, I do know my house.
What house are you?
I'm a Ravenclaw.
Okay. Oh, yeah. I think we talked about this.
Yeah. Which
that makes sense.
I was going to say, at first I was like, I want to be Gryffindor because, you know, that was like the Harry Potter house. But then going back, I was like, oh, no, it totally makes sense that I'm a Ravenclaw.
A lot of Harry Potter fans like to do the cusp. They call it, where you're kind of like two houses in one. Yeah. So I could see you as like a Ravendor.
A Ravenclaw.
A Ravenclaw Gryffindor.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm a Slitherpuff, so...
Oh, I could see that. So is your official house Slytherin, or...?
Yeah.
Oh.
I'm Snake. A slippery snake.
I was just... Oh my goodness, I was going to say something like that. That's hilarious.
But yeah. And then, like, I'm soft on the inside, so don't come for me, because... Yeah, I love that. Have you ever seen that meme of like who will cut you without hesitation, who will cut you in defense?
Yes, like who's a cinnamon roll that will kill you?
Yeah, all that stuff. Like my Slytherinness, like you would think like I would just cut you just cause, but it's because I'm soft boy and I'll like cut you to just like to protect myself. So you'd be like the looks like they could kill you, but it's actually a cinnamon roll. Honestly. Yeah. Like, when it comes down to it, like, it's so funny. Like, I'll fight for my friends. Like, I will do pretty much anything for a friend, you know? Like, I don't care. There's no limitation. But when it comes to, like, trying to, like, defend myself, it's so bad. I become, like, the most helpless thing. Like, it's so funny. But yeah.
Well, speaking of fighting for your friends, and the Avengers, what was your opinion on the movie?
My opinion of the movie, it's changed a little bit. Like, I remember when I first saw it, like, back in 2012, like, they could have done no wrong. Like, I was like, it was perfect. Yeah. Like, oh my gosh, like, it had everything. What more could you have asked for? Yeah. And then, like, they raised the bar, you know, with some of their other movies, and more comic book movies were coming out, and the bar was just slowly kind of getting higher. And, you know, up until we watched it today, I was kind of like, it still holds up. It's still pretty good. You know, like, there's still so much that I like. I don't see too many flaws, but I think now that we've kind of been reviewing these Marvel movies and, you know, going down the pipes, if you will, I don't think the Avengers would have held up if it wasn't for some of these other movies, you know? Like, and I mean, it's not supposed to. There's so much involved. But, you know, I do believe when people say a movie should stand up on its own and be able to be held to, like, its own like accords and its own esteem without the need of the other movies in its franchise. And though there's a lot of great stuff about this movie and a lot of great stuff that Joss Whedon implemented into the formula of comic book movies, modern comic book movies, my opinion has changed where I don't think it would have held up as well without, you know, some of the movies that we've been talking about that we necessarily didn't like, you know, like the Hulk and like Thor, you know, without these movies, like, you wouldn't have had that bridge. You wouldn't have had, like, these villains. You wouldn't have had these themes and, you know, this way of storytelling. And, you know, for a standalone movie, that's not necessarily good. Yeah. But, you know, I can get nitpicky all I want to, but I like it. I still like it a lot. I just don't like it as much as I used to because now I'm really coming at it as a reviewer and not just a regular audience member, you know? And like, I'm not saying like before, like I wasn't, you know, analyzing it, but now like I'm really, really seeing that like, you know, it kind of used the other Marvel movies as its crutch to kind of get through most of the movies. Like, there were some great jokes and one-liners and it was cool seeing everyone together and there's bits and pieces that I love that will always hold a place in my heart, and the effort was still there. Like you could tell everyone just gave 100%, and that's amazing. And it's such a blessing as like, you know, a viewer of these movies to see that everyone was so committed to making this work. You know, it's just, you have to call out the things that like need to be called out and need to be addressed and need to be talked about. And that's that, you know, this movie wouldn't have done so well if it wasn't for everything leading up to it, the anticipation. It worked a lot on the anticipation to get it to where it was. And I mean, don't get me wrong, still well deserved, still, you know, deserved the billions of dollars that it acquired. But, you know, I'm seeing it a little more critically now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, what about you? I totally agree. It was like, I'm coming at it now, not just as a reviewer, but someone who is now starting to watch all of the movies. Because I haven't seen all of them. And so coming, you know, from a review standpoint, like, you're absolutely right. This movie does not hold up on its, like, as a standalone. Or it does and it doesn't, because you're right. There are a lot of callback moments. And because we've been on this little journey of watching every movie in the chronological timeline order, it was a lot of like, oh my gosh, that's a callback to this. There's a callback to that. There's a callback to this. There's a callback to that. Constantly, like the entire movie is a callback to all of the other 6 films or 5 films, with the exception of Captain Marvel. But even then, has some elements from Captain Marvel in it. Yeah, I think like Captain Marvel took a lot of the other things from the past to make its movie. So now you can't even think about it like when you're watching it in this order without like, oh, this is their motivation for this because of Captain Marvel. So, you know, there was a lot of like callback. But in terms of a standalone, if you hadn't seen those movies, I think, would it still be enjoyable? Absolutely. Because you're like, you know, it's a superhero movie and you can root for the good guy, and you might not necessarily know what's going on because they do briefly catch you up on what the characters have been doing. Yeah. But at the same time, you're right. It's all about the hype. They've been if you look at it for the past 6 movies, again, they've been like, all right, building up and building up and building up to this team moment. And then, now it's here. So people have been, at this point, you're getting excited. Oh my goodness. Here's how they connect. How's it all going to work for the Avengers? And then boom, here's the Avengers. And this is how all of those interconnecting stories are now able to connect and how and whatnot. So, the movie, personally, it was enjoyable. It was, I appreciate it for what it is. It was an enjoyable movie. It was a good movie. I can understand why it made billions at the box office. But I feel too nowadays, if you don't watch the previous movies, you might not appreciate this movie. It's going to be more underappreciated, is what I mean to say. As compared to now, I think I appreciate the movie a little bit more because I've seen those callback moments. Yeah. Because there was some stuff that I didn't even remember watching because it's been such a long time since I've seen this film. That I was like, oh my goodness, wow, oh wow, there's a callback again. Like, it was nice to see that and to recognize that. But yeah, there was a lot of it was held up mostly by callback moments and then maybe a few new things here and there. So yeah, it was good, but it was it was a good start. I want to say it was a good start, good foundation. But unfortunately, with all of those callback moments, you're gonna miss a lot of the film if you haven't seen the others. Yeah. It's just going to fly over your head, and then you're going to enjoy it, but you're not going to really appreciate it because you don't fully know what's going on. So, but yeah, that's my opinion on it. Okay. Yeah, there wasn't a whole lot that, it was good. It was good. But it's unfortunate that the film solely relies on the callback moments. But I feel like all the Avengers movies do. All the team up ones do. Yeah, I mean, so
it's kind of like it's almost like watching one long movie, Yeah, yeah. That just takes place over a matter of years, where you see all this even though they're going through their own individual things, you see how they're affecting their world and the world is affecting them. And that all comes to a head when this new big threat comes and they all have to team up, which I love. And, that's comic book 101. Yeah. And it's so beautiful seeing that translated into film and especially live action. It's just sometimes with the way the foundations of how movies were set up, I mean, it wasn't. Movies weren't made for franchises. We just turned it into that because of capitalism. But, yeah. But it's some of it gets lost in translation, especially for common moviegoers who aren't looking sometimes for this 2-year adventure,
Yeah, or to see Iron Man 5, they'd be like, okay, I've already seen enough Iron Man. I don't need to see another, They don't want to commit to that, and sometimes it feels like you kind of have to, which is also, it's kind of a loss, but luckily, the fandoms are strong, and new people can come and enjoy it because now they have a different way of experiencing it that they may not necessarily would have had before. Oh yeah, so, absolutely.
There's good and bad to both. As someone who loves comic book stories, like I said, I've said this before. I didn't grow up with comic books, but I love the stories that it told, and I appreciate the art form. And to see that kind of be transformed into film is really nice. Yeah. Yeah. But yeah. I didn't grow up a whole lot with comic books either, and so, but I always like seeing other works of art translated into different mediums.
like, I don't care for the movie version of it, but I can appreciate the movie version of Phantom of the Opera because it was a different way to tell the story that's already been told on stage. Yeah. And there's only so much that you can do in a comic book. There's only so much that you can do on a Broadway stage or in a movie. Yeah. So it's interesting to see how the other mediums can work with this one central, thing. Like with Spider-Man, going back to that, like, clearly the concept didn't work for a Broadway musical, but it's interesting to see how they can take Spider-Man, which has already been a movie, which has already been, a comic and an animated TV series and whatnot, and turn it into a musical. Yeah. And how they use what they have on stage to make this story come to life. Yeah. So I can appreciate Spider-Man for that, but other than that, that was a train wreck. So, but I always love seeing, the same, how different mediums can approach the artwork. Mm-hmm. With like, even too, like, I really love when people do animated, like on YouTube, they'll do, animated works in progress of things that they're creating based off of a song or something, and there's only so much that you can do in a song, right? Because it's an audio thing. So to see visuals that maybe, people haven't thought of before or use it for a different setting or a different context, is always intriguing to me. So, but yeah, I agree. Yeah, it's interesting. It's a fascinating thing, and I love, it's also a very creative thing. You have to take something like the Avengers and how do you tell this story on I almost said on stage, Avengers the musical. How do you take the Avengers and tell their story on screen and make it work? Yeah. In all aspects.
My other favorite thing, to kind of add on to what you just said, is I love how also they're with the producers and the directors that they get. I've always said that Marvel kind of focuses more on humanity, mm-hmm. Like the human aspects of a superhero. Yeah. And I think that's why it was so perfect for film. Yeah. These Marvel stories were so perfect for film because that's what film does. It takes what it means to be human. Yeah. And it's able to expand on that story visually. Yeah. And there's nothing more of a spectacle than like a superhero story as well. Like it feels really clandestine, like, mm-hmm. I mean, I know probably when they first started trying to make comics and stuff like that, the idea was how can we take these tales and these stories and put images to them and stretch the imagination. Yeah. And that's what I love about art and, these mediums and stuff like that as well. Is just like, we're always pushing to stretch the imagination further. Yeah. And, I appreciate people like Stan Lee and Jack Kirby, especially who really were the patriarchs of some of these comics. Don't get me wrong, like, there's a lot of great DC comics as well, but people know these men's names for outside of comic books in general. You know what I mean? Yeah, that's true. They pushed. I feel like they pushed boundaries a little further. Yeah. And like DC always caught up. And then they were ahead. They kind of like got ahead, and it was always that race. But like,
yeah, I was gonna say it's always been like a back and forth. One will do it, and then
But there's something about like these two, like this dynamic duo that just transcended just past comic books and the culture, geek culture, if you will, mm-hmm. and became mainstream, which something I feel isn't that easy, especially with nerd culture and geek, nerd like nerdy stuff. Like, it's just recently, and I think also because of some of these movies like Batman and Iron Man and
even too
Spider-Man.
like shows like The Big Bang Theory.
Yeah, like it became popular.
Yeah,
and
I don't really care for The Big Bang Theory, but it does. Yeah, but it does have. It did bring that like being a nerd's cool sort of thing, I guess, to it. Like.
Yeah, I mean. More so for me, it's just like liking these things is okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
It doesn't have to. You don't have to be considered childish or immature or weird or, people are gonna like what they like, and it's okay to be proud of that. And
there's no age limit.
There's also the downsides of something that's been so. Not hidden, but like reserved to a certain group of people when it becomes popular, and then everyone, comes out of the woodworks, and all these people now are just kind of oversaturating it. Like, yeah, it can be a problem. Yeah, and everything has its toxicity, but like,
yeah, absolutely. I've noticed that too with like anime. Like anime now is starting to kind of get its shine in the spotlight. Its time in the spotlight. So it's like. Now that kind of sort of feels like, you've got, the gatekeepers and whatnot, the oversaturation of people.
Anime is an important part of our culture.
Yeah, that's Deku's voice, but voice actor. But
yeah, I just know it from TikTok. I'm sorry.
Oh no, you're good. And two, side note about anime, I think too that's why I liked in terms of like superheroes. Mm-hmm. And doing something different in a creative way, like My Hero was like, for me too, it was like a different take on, a superhero team. Yeah. Like teen superheroes, they have to go to school for it, and they're all still kind of learning and whatnot.
Like, it's like, I feel like Avengers and Justice League too, they kind of always like skate around the idea of like, what if you legalize being a superhero, and you have these people register and become like state employees of the state and things like that, and there are comic books around it, but I think My Hero Academia takes it to a whole nother level, and the real idea of what if you monopolize on superheroes and what does that mean going forward, and
there's rankings and things like that, so imagine like not just having the Avengers but also now having let's say the Justice League, who's really number one, in terms if they're all in the same universe, hypothetically if they're all in the same universe, who's going to be the true number one, and that's kind of because they're all very, very powerful. So but it's always fascinating. I love seeing, like I said before, I love seeing the concept in different mediums and different forms. And any final thoughts?
Final thoughts. Just a couple things. One, just to kind of ice the cake on the topics that we've been talking about, because I feel like this has kind of gone past Avengers and just into superhero stories in general. Yeah. It's great to see where, not only where like the kicking off point was for these stories and how they grew to be so widely known, but I feel like this movie really was like, I feel like the first phase of Avengers was kind of like the practice round, or like the whatchamacallit, the scrimmage race, if you will. But this busted the doors wide open, and they were like, okay, on your mark, get set, go. And, these past, 10 years, look at where we are now. Yeah. And just how different the world is because of these movies. Like, you will never be able to deny it, Yeah. I really do feel like these movies changed how we see a lot of the world and how we move about a lot of the world. And that's amazing. That's astounding. I think for better or for worse, I think Stan Lee and, Jack Kirby and a lot of these comic book creators would be so proud of how far their stories have come and how beloved they are to so many people. And
Absolutely.
because people treated comic books like a joke way back when in like the 50s, the 50s and 60s. And there was so many ups and downs. Like I remember seeing a documentary on Stan Lee, and like he had so many ups and downs with just trying to keep Marvel alive, and like now they're forever cemented in people's minds. Like this man's stories are forever just part of a culture, and that's so inspiring. It's something that I aspire to each and every day, and I'm slowly working towards. So it kind of just gives you that hope, like that hope for people to resonate with you and what you believe in through what you do and the stories that you tell. As a storyteller, it always amazes me.
Absolutely.
The second thing is, once again, I am just here for Loki. Like Loki, I want to talk about it a little bit, but Loki was amazing in this movie. Like Tom Hiddleston, once again, just really brought this presence to Loki's villainy. Like it wasn't so much evil and sadistic, but just angry and blinded by emotion. Yeah. And I really loved watching it. It's kind of like how you were saying last episode with the anti-hero. Like he really is an amazing anti-hero, and it's really refreshing. I think also, it kind of gave people another understanding of everything isn't always black and white, and everything doesn't have to be. And you feeling this way, it's not so much validation, but I think it opened up the topic for a lot more things having to do with like these dark emotions, especially in storytelling and in film, and still be mainstream, which is really, really cool as well. So yeah, those are my thoughts.
Oh, that's it. That's all. I mean, you covered a lot in this podcast. You're right. It wasn't all about Avengers, but I think Avengers did change the way we look at superheroes. And brought it brought a lot. There's so much that I can't. It escapes me because I can't think of it at the moment. But it did change things, and yeah, that's all I have to say. It brought change, and it'll be interesting to see now the story moving forward, because now we've already seen the big team up. So yeah,
there's so much more. Like there's things that like they're like, so every once in a while when a part will come on, you'd be like, and like you'd even say like, I wonder how that's going to affect like later on. There's stuff that I want to say, but there's also stuff that I don't want to give away because I know you haven't seen a lot of it, so it's really hard. I'm just like,
yeah, it's nice too to discover that, and I appreciate that too, because it's nice to be like, oh, I was right, or oh, I was wrong. And even though these movies have been out, as we progress on this journey, it's interesting to see, to make the connections for yourself.
Yeah.
And if you miss it, to have someone point it out, and then you go, oh, that makes sense, in terms of where we are in the story. But yeah. So yeah, I think that's it for this episode. For the next 2 weeks, we're taking a little break from Marvel. I think that's perfect because we just finished the big team up movie.
Yeah.
So we're gonna take a little break because it is spooky, scary Halloween season.
Ow.
So next week, Jimmy Smalls and I are gonna be watching his Halloween pick. Do you want to say what it is, or do you want to wait for next week?
I want to wait for next week. I want everyone to be surprised.
And then the week of Halloween, we'll be watching my spooky scary pick. So look forward to that for the next 2 weeks. We'll take a quick Marvel break, kind of dive into the season and watch something spooky scary. Not super scary, but enough to spook you. And then, after that, we will jump back into it with, I think it's, I don't remember. Is it Thor?
Iron Man 3.
Iron Man 3. That's
Man
right.
3.
Iron Man 3. So yeah, thank you so much for listening to us. I would say thank you so much for watching, but you can't watch this unless you're watching on YouTube.
Unless you're viewing a screen and thumbnail
on YouTube,
on the YouTubes.
On the YouTubes, or if you're watching on a screen on Spotify. I don't know why you'd watch Spotify to listen to
Actually,
this.
Funny enough, I watched the first episode with a friend on Spotify on his TV screen. So you can do that too.
There you go.
Yeah,
so
I think he did it through his PlayStation, so.
Oh, there you go. Well, thank you so much for listening or for watching. I have been your host, Bree Valentina.
And I have been your host, Jimmie Smalls.
And we will see you guys next week.
Yes.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. See you guys next time. Goodbye.